Woosa, wake up South Africa. Woosa, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa. Now come along and sing this song. Wake up South Africa.
Hare Krishna, can everybody hear me well? Hare Krishna, Sanbonani Molweni Dumelang, and welcome to another WUSA Sunday morning inspiration session. My name is Nomsa, and I'll be the host for today. I'm so happy to be here today. Today's a very special day. It's Mother's Day, so I'd like to wish all our beautiful matas a very happy Mother's Day. I'd like to extend a very happy Mother's Day to our very special guest this morning, Her Grace Devotee Devi Dasi. Happy Mother's Day. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Mata. All right. So I'd like to read Mataji's bio before we begin our session. Then I'll lay down a few house rules and then we can start. Today's a very important and powerful session. It's going to be 2 hours of a jam-packed, knowledge-packed session. So please get yourselves ready. So Mataji's bio reads, Her Grace Devaki Devi Dasi, as a disciple of His Holiness Naranjana Maharaj, who joined the Brahmacharini Ashram in Australia in 1985 as a Grihastra. She preached in former Soviet Union in 1999, serves as a renounced traveling preacher, regularly visiting India, Bangladesh, Europe, and the US. She serves on the GBC Committee for Devotee Care and currently promotes such care as a priority within the ISKCON family. Her multifaceted understanding of Vaishnava culture inspired her to establish the Institute for Spiritual Culture in 2014. Offering insightful education in Vaishnava life, she has published 3 books and conducts holy name retreats around the world. So, for our house rules, just a few house rules, nothing too scary. Kindly switch and keep your cameras on so that we can have a welcoming and personable session. All mics will be muted and will remain muted until the question and comments time towards the end of each session. Please raise your hand to be unmuted and feel free to type your question in the comments on Facebook and the Zoom chat panel, and the admin will go as we go along, you'll be attended to thereafter. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'd like to hand it over to you, Her Grace Devotee Devidasi.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for arranging this seminar and for allowing me to be part of it. Om Agyantimandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jana Tasmai Shri Gave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Danati Swavadantikam Namo Vishnu Pada Krishna Pista Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Neve Gaurvani Pachoyine Nirvishisha Shunyavari Pasatari Satarini Vanchakapa Juvasha Kripa Sinivevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Guru Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Yes, so if I understand correctly, we actually have 2 sessions today, not only one.
Yes, that's correct. We have 2 amazing sessions, one now and one in the evening.
Well, whether it will be so amazing or not, let us see. So we have now 2 sessions and in the afternoon 2 sessions. And the topic we have is devotee care based on sheltering relationships, right? So I actually have a 15-hour seminar on this topic. So I'm facing now the challenge of reducing 15 hours to 4 hours. And also, just to begin with, I do have a book about this, which is even more complete than the 15-hour seminar. Of course, it is also not complete, but it is more, it is brings in so many more points which I cannot even address in 15 hours, what to speak of 4 hours, So I do want to recommend you that, we can only give a little insight into this whole topic. So if you're interested to get this book, it is available on Amazon in a soft copy. But if you're one of these people who rather have a book in your hand and not there on the, on the computer or the Kindle or whatever, I can send them. I send them all over the planet to, Australia and America and Canada and. So if you want to get a book, all you have to do is, approach me, or you can do a collective order there for the South African devotees, and I can send them. So now let us have a little overview of what we will discuss today. So this morning session, I want to basically try my very, very best to convince you all that without sheltering relationships, we actually cannot make progress. So that is the topic for the morning session. And then in the afternoon, I want to get more into the topic, what qualifications we have to have in order to give shelter to others. Yes, so that's basically, what I thought would be an effective way to use this time. And as I'm saying again, we will not be able to, go in too many facets and details and so on, simply because we're limited by time. And, some weeks ago, I can't remember exactly when it was, but some weeks ago, we had already one tiny little 1-hour session on this topic, right? So, but now, since also maybe our audience is a different one, I have to, because this is too long ago, people already cannot remember anymore. So I will have to repeat pretty much what we were discussing there, just to create a foundation, you know, for everything further, you know. So let me begin by understanding a little bit, or by describing a little bit, the whole topic of devotee care. You know, this is an interesting thing that most of us, we do have a rather shallow understanding what actually devotee care means. We often think devotee care is when somebody is sick and we bring them prasadam to the hospital, or I'm doing devotee care. But no, devotee care is something much deeper. It actually has to be based on sheltering relationships, that a more experienced devotee gives guidance and shelter, and the less experienced devotee learns from him. These sheltering relationships is a very, very important part of spiritual practice, and also of our Vaishnav culture. So, and I have been part, not so much recently, but for 5-6 years, I was in this GBC strategic planning in the devotee care committee there. And very interestingly, how did this devotee care committee come about? It was initially a preaching committee. And in this preaching committee, there was two sides, two moods. One mood was, yes, we need new devotees. Let's get new devotees to come to ISKCON. And then the other mood was, hang on, where are the old devotees? What is the use to bring all those new devotees if we somehow or other can't manage to keep our devotees, which we have already, if we can't keep them in the fire of devotional life, happy and enthusiastically serving, you know? So what is the use? So, and then this preaching committee turned into a devotee care committee, that because senior devotees understood, actually, we are doing something wrong, because so many people come to Krishna consciousness, they hang around for some time, and then for some reason they're fading away again. You know, this is going on all over the world. Sometimes I'm making this somewhat, joking comment, but it's not a joke, it's actually a fact, that I'm sometimes saying, you know, if after 10, 15, 20 years, you go to a temple where you haven't been for so long, the only personalities who you have seen before are the deities. You know, but all the other devotees, you wonder, where is everybody from 20 years ago? Where are they? You know, this is going on all over the world, you know. And I once had very clearly this realization when I went back to one temple after 18 years or something, where I hadn't been for 18 years. And I was so looking forward to meet all my old friends from the early days. And then I was wondering, where is everybody? Where is everybody? And I was thinking, oh, surely when the gurus come, then they will come. But so many gurus came, but I was wondering, where is everybody? So then I thought, oh, Janmashtami, surely everybody will come. But again, all these devotees from 20 years ago were not there, you know, and I couldn't stop thinking, you know, this occupied my mind so much. I couldn't stop thinking about this. What are we doing wrong? You know, that after 20 years, you hardly find any of the devotees still active and enthusiastic in service. So, and then I almost also came to this point where I was thinking, what's the use really for all this outreach if we can't keep people in the fire of devotional life, you know? So that just as a little introductory realization, simply the fact that we make so many endeavors to bring devotees to Krishna consciousness. But unfortunately, we don't make so much endeavor and effort to actually ongoingly inspire and nourish the devotees, because that's what actually the bhakti latte needs. It's not enough to just plant the seed, or just to convince a person of the value of Krishna consciousness. But we do need ongoing guidance, ongoing nourishment, ongoing correction also, and that is based on a trusting, confidential relationship, a sheltering relationship. So basically, that the essence is that it is not enough just to have a Diksha Guru, because our Diksha Gurus, some of them have hundreds and thousands of devotees. They cannot possibly be involved with each and every devotee's personal life. It is not possible, so therefore we do need a mentor, a coach, a counselor who can observe us more on a regular daily basis and sees how we are practicing, how is our sadhana, how is our service mood, how is our cooperation with the devotees, so this is so important, so important. We have indeed lost many, many devotees over the last 50 years because we have not understood this, and then sometimes there's some conflict, some misunderstanding. And then if we don't have these trusting, confidential relationships, we will just leave, we get offended, we walk out, never to be seen again. This happens all the time, Yeah, so this is just a little introduction here to the topic. So now let us try to establish this need for sheltering relationships. So in the Madhava Mahotsava, Jiva Goswami gives a very nice verse. He says, though one usually ignores others in attaining one's goals, those aspiring for prema, they accept dependence on others with similar goals and tastes. Thus, cooperating with each other, they worked together, keeping in mind the goal of prema. So this is a very interesting statement that Jiva Goswami says already 500 years ago. He observed that there is two kinds of people in this world, and they have very different ways how they associate with others. So he says, though one usually ignores others in attaining one's own goals, so who is that? That's the materialist, the general person. He tends to ignore others when striving for their own goals. But those aspiring for prema, obviously, the spiritualists, they don't ignore others. They act very differently. They actually accept dependence on others who have similar goals and tastes. And they cooperate. They cooperate with each other, working together, not against each other, but with each other. Yes, Sam? So, and this already connects the whole topic to the topic of culture. Actually, yeah, most of you still haven't switched on your video. I would like to see your smiling faces here of my audience. Come on, I'm a personalist. Please switch on your video. Let me see you. Okay, there we have some people being bold enough to switch on the video. Okay, thank you so much, Peruse. Yes. Yeah, so this connects us with the topic of culture, which, as you may know or maybe don't know, this is one of my missions, which I feel such great urgency for, because culture actually comes about by living a certain philosophy and worldview. By living it, we get the culture. So, and we are not quite there yet. We like to learn our philosophy and repeat it and learn it all by heart, but we are not quite there yet in actually applying it in our own life. But, I think Prabhupada expects this from us, that we also live it. And then we actually get the culture, So in other words, let us understand materialistic culture, spiritual culture, they're like day and night. They're based on very, very different worldviews. Material life is all about sense gratification being the goal in life. Spiritual life, we reduce sense gratification. I mean, it can't be more opposite than that, So naturally, people in these two cultures have very different ways of dealing with each other. So let us have a look at the materialistic culture, a culture where sense gratification is the goal in life. So how do people act with each other? Jiva Goswami tells us already, they usually ignore others in attaining one's goals. But they don't only ignore others, they do much more than that. They push each other out of the way. They step on each other's heads to get up there, right? That's what, what's going on in the material world. There's competition there. There's envy there. As soon as sense gratification is the goal in life, you always get envy and competition coming in, always, because, sense enjoyment means you want to be the top enjoyer, you want to be the controller, you want to be the proprietor. So there's competition and envy there. And also, there is a strong emphasis on separatism, individualism, and the relationships are rather superficial, external, because they're based on sense and gratification. So it means I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's a subtle business deal there. You support me, I will support you. As long as you satisfy my senses and my agendas, you're my friend. But if somebody else comes along who can satisfy my senses better, then you are out of it and the next person is my friend. So that's the mood, in general terms, in a culture where sense gratification is the goal in life. There is no service mood towards each other. No, the foundation is enjoying. Let's enjoy together, not let's serve each other. Let's enjoy together. And that makes the relationships rather selfish and actually impersonal, And everybody's very much busy with their own life, and my schedule, my goals, running, and we don't have time for others around us, that's basically in a nutshell, the mood in materialistic culture, how people deal with each other, So, and then in spiritual life, in a culture where self-realization is the goal of life, it is very different, as Jiva Goswami says. There are people, they don't ignore each other and they don't work against each other, but they cooperate. And there, the main feature is that we like to accept dependence on others who have a similar mood and taste. And there's an internal dependence. This is internally, mind you, not externally when we talk about dependence. We're not talking about financial dependence or something, but it is an internal mood, Yeah, so, and in such a culture, in spiritual life, there is this internal dependence there. There is respect there in the service mood, as in our Vaishnav life, we understand, we see each other always We see ourselves as servants of the others, no matter whether we are, in a higher position or on an equal level, or whether we are junior, we are always serving. That's the mood, and there's respect there and humility there. And there, in such a culture, it is very natural that the seniors uplift the juniors, that they reach out in affection, that they have some genuine concern. How are the young devotees doing? Maybe I can uplift them, I can serve them, I show some interest in their life. It's a very natural thing. And it's exactly as natural for the young devotees to serve the seniors and to inquire from them, to learn from them. The understanding is there. They have so much more life experience than I have. So obviously I can learn something from them. That is the very natural, loving exchange in Vaishnav life, that the seniors reach out to the juniors and the juniors, approach the seniors by serving them and by inquiring. Tadvidi panipatina pariprashnena sevaya. There we have it. It's not only towards Guru that we have pariprashnena sevaya, that we pariprashna is inquiring, sevaya is serving. So we should, approach Guru or any senior person in this mood that we offer service and we inquire from them. And that is how Vaishnavas are associating with each other, you see. So now we have to probably admit that, we are all living in a pretty materialistic surroundings, whether this is South Africa or Germany or Australia or even India. Life is becoming more and more materialistic. People, more and more strive for sense gratification, for their goals in life, their career, and they push each other down and out of the way, and they ignore each other. They have no time. Don't bother me with my questions. A materialist finds it a botheration if people ask them and they want to talk to them. Don't disturb me. I got no time. But a Vaishnava is very happy if somebody comes and inquires. It's his greatest joy that somebody actually wants to learn something and reveals his heart, and he will always make time, to actually give attention to a younger devotee who wants to get some guidance. So the whole mood is just so different in these two cultures, and we have to admit we are just heavily conditioned by this materialistic lifestyle. And that's why we easily bring this into our spiritual life, and we carry the same attitude into our Vaishnava communities and our relationships, that we ignore others, we step on their heads, we push them out of the way, we see them as competitors, and so on, And in such a culture, taking shelter, giving shelter, it's kind of almost alien, it's foreign, it doesn't fit into such a mindset and so on, Yes, but we have to transform ourselves, we don't want to stay as we are, we want to transform, we want to actually accept the Vaishnava lifestyle, the Vaishnava consciousness, the Vaishnava attitude, the Vaishnava heart, so we have to transform. And I mean, it's very interesting to see that this whole topic of culture and also respect and shelter, this is very much connected with the standard of life. In countries where there's a higher standard of life, where people are more wealthy, it is unavoidable that sense gratification becomes more and more the goal in life. You know, the more money people have in their pockets, the more they make plans. How can I enjoy? How can I increase my money? What can I do with it? And you know. But whereas in countries where life is more simple and people are more poor, and usually I do spend a lot of time in those countries. You know, now for the last year, I've mainly been here in Germany, got stuck here in the Corona crisis. But usually I don't even spend much time in the Western world, actually. I spend a lot of time in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Moldova, sometimes Russia. Their life is more simple. You know, Ukraine, people are very poor. Or I spend more time in Bangladesh also, you know, they're also life very simple. So in such a, you know, when the standard of life is lower, then it's easier for people to realize that actually relationships give more protection than money, you know, because people don't even have much money in the pocket. So therefore they cannot make so many elaborate plans for enjoying their money. So therefore, spiritual culture is much more preserved in those countries, even Ukraine. You know, it's much more traditional because materialism simply has not set in as much as in Germany, you know. And you can directly observe that in such countries like Ukraine, people have much deeper and affectionate relationships, much more personal, you know, because their people understand if we stick together and help each other, we get further in life, you know. But this wealth, if there's no God consciousness there, then wealth makes life more impersonal and selfish and simply egocentric. And people only look what's good for them. And life becomes very impersonal, you know. So it is really connected also with the standard of life, you know, so that's also interesting to observe. So yes, let me go on. I mean, I will still continue to present a few more points. And then, of course, also I will leave some time for questions and so on, you know. Usually I like to ask for questions, let's say, after, you know, 50 minutes or something, you know, and then continue. So in the first block of this morning, I would like to make a question session after an hour or something, and then one more question and answer session at the end of the morning block. And then in the afternoon again, we have 2 hours. And then again, after 1 hour, we will see, you know, what questions are there. And then at the end, we can again ask for questions. So this is my plan. And yes, I hope we will be able to follow that timeline, you know. Yeah, so let us, I'd like to read one little quote from the Garuda Purana, where it says, "One cannot be liberated without the association of a pure devotee of the Lord." So that's pretty clear. We heard that many times. But then it also says, "And unless one shows mercy to those in an inferior position, one's life will be superficial." So that is something we don't hear so much, you know, meaning that unless we come in our devotional practice, we come to a point where we actually have genuine concern for others around us. And we actually, you know, we want to show mercy and compassion, and we uplift them, and we are willing to sacrifice our time and energy to uplift others. Our life is superficial. Yes. So it means, why is it superficial? Because we are selfish. We only think about ourselves. We don't care about others around us, you know? And it basically means kanishta. Kanishta, you know? A kanishta is simply worried about himself. my spiritual life, my service, doesn't give a damn about anybody else. It's just me and Krishna and Guru, and that's it. That's Kanishta. But sooner or later, it should be the most natural progression of devotional life, that sooner or later we really want to pass on to others what we received. We have such gratitude for what Krishna consciousness gave to us, that we do want to give this somehow to others, and we do want to guide and uplift and support other devotees around us. That should be the most natural progression of our spiritual practice. If we don't come to this point, then something is missing. Then something is missing in our development. So now, interestingly, it says here, our life will be superficial, but not only our life, but also our relationships are superficial. And this is really an interesting point. As we said, in material life, the basis of our relationships is sense gratification. Let's enjoy each other. Let's enjoy together. Let's go to the movies together. Let's go to the beach together. Let's have a good time together. That's the foundation of material life. So now, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we understand, no, we don't want sense gratification as foundation to our spiritual life. We know that. So we take away this foundation of sense gratification. But unless we replace this foundation of sense gratification with this exchange of giving shelter and accepting shelter, there will be a vacuum. It will be hollow, empty. And that's exactly what I am observing so often in our communities, that this foundation of sense gratification is taken away, but it has not been replaced with this foundation of giving shelter and accepting shelter. That the seniors reach out to the juniors, have some genuine concern and interest in their spiritual progress, and that the juniors inquire and open their hearts and ask for guidance and serve the seniors. That's what makes a relationship deep and meaningful, if that exchange is there. But if it is not there, then I like to call these relationships Hari-Bol relationships. Yes? Do you understand what a Hari-Bol relationship is? When we just run past each other, basically. Oh, Hari-Bol Prabhu, Hari-Bol Mataji, nice to see you. Oh, Hari-Bol, yeah, how are you? Yeah, I'm busy, I'm running, I have to do my seva, Hari-Bol. So I think we all have plenty of these kind of relationships. And of course, at least we are saying Hari-Bol, at least it's something. But we don't really get on deeper levels. They're rather external, superficial, And yeah, and I don't want to sound critical or something. I'm just making the diagnosis here. I'm coming from a medical background, so my outlook is always, what's the diagnosis? What's the therapy? And are we really taking the therapy also? Just to describe the therapy, not enough for me. I want to see, are we taking it? So, and very often, usually I'm every weekend in a different temple in a different country, whatever. So I'm getting around a little bit all over the planet. And I always observe what is going on here, And I have been to projects, to temples. When you get there, you think, wow, amazing, so beautiful, such fantastic, facilities. Here in Europe, we have castles and so many amazing places, And you think, wow, amazing. So, but then when you stay a little longer, you wonder what's going on here. And somehow the atmosphere is almost a little weird, you know, everybody's just running. People come out of their rooms, do their seva, back in their rooms, close the door, you know, and it's almost a little strange, you know, and I'm thinking, God, why, what is missing here? And then I started realizing, yes, this is what it's missing. No giving shelter, no accepting shelter. Everybody just running, doing their thing, hiding in their rooms, keeping to themselves. Nobody's even bothered to ask other, or how are you doing? You know, you don't look so happy today. And, you know, yeah, that sheltering relationships, you know, they're not there, these sheltering relationships. This loving exchange of, you know, sharing our life experience with those who are less experienced, and, you know, asking for guidance and wanting to learn from those who have more experience. This is a very important exchange, and this is exactly what makes the relationships deep and meaningful, you know. And I mean, sometimes those who know me, I am sometimes a little outspoken and like to make a, you know, some little provocative statements to make everybody think a little bit. So sometimes I'm saying, actually, the non-devotees sometimes treat each other more nicely than the devotees. Unfortunately, it's like that. And why? Well, because the non-devotees know, if I want to enjoy with this person, I have to be nice with him or her. Otherwise, I can't enjoy with them, you know? So the motivation of enjoyment, of sense gratification, that motivates people to be nice to each other, you know? But we have taken this foundation to the relationships away. You know, we don't have this goal in mind. We want to enjoy with each other. So, and therefore we sometimes feel, oh, no need to be nice to people, you know, because I don't want to enjoy with them anyway, you know. Yeah, that's the problem. So we have not managed, you know, to replace this foundation of sense gratification with the foundation of sheltering relationships. You know, that gives us the answer. And it is actually a very crucial element of community development. If we want to develop communities, there are two tools which are highly important. First tool is the deities have to be in the center of the community. That's Vaikuntha atmosphere. Everybody wants to serve the deities. You know, the deities' pleasure is the center. You know, everybody should have some connection with the deities in some little way, whatever it may be. And the deities are the center. So this is highly important, but it is not everything. Because as we know, Krishna says, not he is my devotee who claims to be my devotee, but he who is the devotee of my devotee. He is my real devotee. You know, and the devotees are so dear to Krishna, you know, that if we don't care for each other and we uplift and we inspire and we support each other according to our propensities and abilities, Krishna will not be happy. You know, Krishna will say, oh yeah, all right, you're doing all these nice things for me, but what about my devotees? You're forgetting them. They're leaving. They're upset. You know, they're walking out the door. You know, yes. So the second tool of community development is to establish this mood of sheltering relationships. That's what it's all about. And I have this experience, you know, from Ukraine. You know, Narendra Swami is GBC there. So he is very close, you know, associate of Radhanath Swami. So, and Radhanath Swami built this whole model of Chaupati, which is based on this principle of devotee care based on sheltering relationships. This is Radhanath Swami's amazing or one of his amazing contributions he has made to ISKCON, that he created this and he preaches this. So, and when was it? My God, this was 25 years ago or 30 years ago, you know. Niranja Swami was visiting Chowpatty, and he immediately understood this is the key, sheltering relationships. And he brought this whole topic to Ukraine. And tirelessly for the last 30, 25, 28 years, Niranja Swami has been preaching this and has been establishing this in Ukraine, a structure, a system that supports this loving exchange of giving shelter and accepting shelter. And since I'm there for the more than 20 years and serving there, and he's also now my third Diksha Guru, I had two others before him. So I have learned and experienced, you know, what it does to a community if these principles of giving and accepting shelter are implemented and are emphasized. Yes, you know, I've directly witnessed how much stability it gives to individual devotees and to the whole community. If this, you know, loving exchange of giving and accepting shelter is supported and facilitated, that's the topic, that we are so conditioned by this materialistic mood that we need some little help, we need some little facilitation to actually cultivate these sheltering relationships, you know. It doesn't happen automatically. It needs to be a little facilitated, you know. Yes, and I mean, coming back to the point which I made, that sometimes the karmis are more nicer with each other than the devotees. There is a little similar story that Radhana Swami tells. So that's what gives me the encouragement to also share this story. So I can't remember where it was, somewhere in some community. You know, there was one visitor who has been coming for many years to the temple. He always comes to the Sunday program and he, you know, he chants a bit, but he keeps a good distance, you know. So then one day, Radhana Swami was asking him, so why don't you join? You know, why don't you join ISKCON? Why don't you, you know, involve yourself more? So the answer he gave, that man, that guest, was striking. He said, well, I have observed how you treat your guests and how you treat your own people. And I decided I rather remain a guest. Wow, that was his answer. Yes, yes, that's what he said. I rather remain a guest, you know. And there is people out there in the material world who have, you know, taken our ISKCON society under the microscope and who have looked there what's going on in this Hare Krishna movement. And they have made these comments. They have made these statements. You guys have the best philosophy, the best food, but how you treat your people is not so nice. Yes, yes, yes. So, and I'm not saying this to criticize, you know, I'm just making the diagnosis here. So where do we have to work on, you know, what's missing, you know? Yeah, so that just supports this very point, you know, that we have to, you know, karmis are more caring often because they want to enjoy. I mean, even in Germany, you know, that many of the shops before the Corona crisis, they had the sticker on the door there saying, here, the customer is the king. You know, der Kunde ist der König in German. You know, the customer is the king. So why is the customer the king? Why are they so friendly? Oh, good morning. You know, nice to see you. How can I serve you? You know, it's of course, it's not selfless love here. You know, of course, The shopkeeper wants to get the money out of the customer. He's materially motivated. And that's what motivates him to be friendly and nice to the customers, because he knows if I'm not nice to the people, they will not come back. And then I will not have any sales here, you know. So, and that's why they're very nice and friendly and polite and so personal and this and that, you know. Yes, but often we devotees, because we are not materially motivated, you know, we are often not so nice with each other, you know. Yes. And that's where we have to work on, you know, if we want to make Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement here powerful and successful and convincing, you know, we have to be more personal and caring with each other. And just to make this one point one more time, some years ago, I was in America, won't mention any temple names or anything. So, and then one senior devotee, I gave the seminar there. And then one Mataji afterwards, she came up to me privately and shared her life story, that she joined, you know, 35 years before or something. And for many years, she did every week, she did some service in the temple there, whatever it was, I can't remember, you know, and then something happened in her life. I even can't remember the details of that, whether it was a health thing, or I think there was some little conflict, some misunderstanding, and she stopped coming. And she told me not a single person rang her. Nobody rang her and asked, oh, what happened? We haven't seen you for so long. How are you? Can I do anything for you? Do you need anything? Not a single person rang her. Nobody. You know, these things are going on. And this is very sad. This is very, very sad. You know? And then she was about, you know, 10, 12, 14 years away from Krishna consciousness. And just when I came there and visited, she had just come back, you know, and she attended the seminar. And this really touched her heart. And she shared this with me privately, that this is the experience she had, you know. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we have something to learn here, you know. We have to reach out to each other, you know, and not just ignore each other. Okay, such and such Mataji, she's gone. Anyway, Krishna sent a new bhakti in here, ki joy, you know, and life goes on. These things we sometimes hear, you know, that people say, oh yeah, such and such, she left. But Krishna sends new person, you know. Yeah, but this is terrible. You know, Prabhupada actually said, and I verified that with Harisori Prabhu, I asked him, you know, and he said, yes, Prabhupada said, if a devotee leaves Krishna consciousness, it is 50% his fault, but the other 50%, it's the fault of the managers and the leaders, the senior devotees. And I think it's time to accept these 50%, you know, of the senior person's fault. We can't just say, oh, he's a Maya and you know, he blooped Maya, you know, but no, we have to accept the other 50%. Yeah, that there was not enough care. We didn't reach out enough. We didn't, you know, we didn't have any genuine concern. There was no love and trust there. And so this is such an important thing, you know. Yes, highly important. Yes, a few more points before we open for questions. As we go through life, we always meet new challenges. You know, life is full of challenges. Let's say a young person joins the brahmacharya ashram, new challenge. So then he may decide to get married. Oh my God, another new challenge. So then he becomes father, another new challenge. So then the kids are teenagers. Oh my God, another new challenge. So then eventually he should move on to the vanaprastha ashram. Oh my God, another new challenge. So life is full of challenges. And there's always somebody who has already more experience facing this same challenge than we have. So it should only be natural. It should be only common sense that we ask for guidance and advice from this person who has more experience facing the challenge which we are facing now, you know? And it's really like that. We could actually save ourselves so many problems, so many miseries in life if we would just be humble enough to ask for guidance. Yes. But very often we just think we know it all and we will work it all out. And we are not open to inquire and ask for guidance, you know? Yes. And sometimes I see this, that people make a whole mess out of their life, you know? And then after they make a mess out of their lives, so then they come to a preacher, somebody like me, and they ask for guidance. And often I feel like saying, my God, you know, why didn't you ask me for guidance before you made this and this and this decision, you know? Because also I feel it's not really fair to a preacher, you know, to make a whole mess out of their life and then expect that, so you're a preacher, you're into devotee care, you know, so now please care for me here. Tell me what to do, work out my mess. You know, no, sorry, this is not what devotee care means. Devotee care means that we support and we guide and we coach devotees so that they don't make a mess out of their lives, you know, that they save themselves from so many miseries, you know. Yes. Yeah, it's really, I mean, it always really breaks my heart to witness all these things, especially also when entering married life, you know, people just get together with somebody and then they make a whole mess out of their life. And then later they realize, oh, we're not even matching. But then there's already a small child and then they separate and, oh, it's sad, you know, rather than asking for guidance before, you know. Yes. So whole big topic, you know. Yes. Yes. And interestingly, you know, often we accept quite easily that, yes, as a young devotee, we need guidance. But interestingly, no matter on which level of advancement we may be, even on a higher level of advancement, we also need guidance. In fact, it is like this: the more responsibility we carry, the more easily we are thrown off balance. The heavier the load is we are carrying, the more easily we are thrown off balance. You know, so even as a very senior person, we do need guidance. You know, yes. Good example is Bharat Maharaj from the Bhagavatam. You know, it's actually a classic devotee care story. You know, Bharat Maharaj was there in the forest, and oh, the poor dear lost his mother. Oh, I have to care for him. But he was not sheltered himself, you know, and he went off the track. He got so entangled in this deer. I mean, when you read the story in the Bhagavatam, my God, you know, he was keeping the deer on his chest at night, embracing, kissing the deer. I mean, my God, you really think, my God, what is this? You know, so he got completely entangled, you know, caring for the deer. It started all with a good intention. So even on the level of bhava, which is a highly elevated platform, you know, these transcendental emotions can transform back into material emotions and material attachments. And that was Bharat Maharaj's problem. He didn't have a mentor. He didn't have a coach there in the forest who would tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, let the deer be deer. It's enough now. You know, go back to your spiritual practice. You know, it's enough, you know. So that just shows, it's a very powerful example, which really illustrates this point, that no matter on which level of advancement we are, we do need sheltering relationships. Somewhere where we can open our heart, where we can reveal our mind, where we can share our biggest fears and struggles. And we know we get some good advice. That is absolutely required. And I mean, I hope we are mature enough here to admit that we have lost a lot of sannyasis and gurus over the years. I mean, I said I'm with the third Diksha guru, so I had two other Diksha gurus before who were not gurus anymore, not sannyasis anymore. So this has happened, quite frequently, So, and I once heard this in a lecture, that all those personalities who could not maintain their position as guru and sannyasi had one thing in common. They did not have trusting, sheltering relationships with their peers, with their god brothers who were a little stronger than them. Just being a god brother doesn't mean we are on the same level of advancement. There's always some god brothers or god sisters who have more spiritualization, who are more empowered. There's always somebody who has qualities which we don't have. So yes, and those personalities who had to give up their positions as gurus and sannyasis and couldn't maintain them, they had all these this thing in common, that they did not have such personalities where they could actually take guidance and reveal their heart, and got some found some shelter there. So very, very important thing. And then also let us understand, it is a very important part of Brahminical culture. That's what the Brahmanas are meant to do. They are meant to be the aloof Brahminical advisors. The Brahmanas were guiding the Kshatriyas how to rule the country. Because the Brahmanas, they don't have any attachment to power and position and title and all that. They're detached, they're aloof, and they simply see what needs to be adjusted so everybody can nicely progress. So not only the Kshatriyas, the kings, need such a Brahminical advisor, but we all do. Because the point is, as long as we have material desires and attachments, our vision of ourselves is distorted. We cannot actually objectively assess ourselves. We cannot see. Yes. And that's why we absolutely need such a person in our life who has no other interest except our spiritual development, our growth, where we have this trust that this person is really genuinely interested in my spiritual development. This is a must. We need such a person. And this is actually what it means to get the blessings of a Vaishnava, to get the mercy of a Vaishnava, that we somehow or other catch that person's interest in our spiritual development. Yes. Then our spiritual life is more protected. If there's somebody in our life where we know that person has no other interest, even no managerial interest. Ooh, that's a big one. We can say the essence of devotee care is actually that we are not only project focused, but we become more people focused. Yes. Big topic. I mean, in these 4 hours, I cannot go into the details, but if you somehow or other get this book, then you will get so much more than what I can bring here, Yes. So, and I mean, And saying this doesn't mean that I am criticizing the managers or something. Of course, a manager, he's doing his job. He's got the managerial glasses on. He sees people in terms of management, who can do what, But this has to be balanced with another, confidential, trusting relationship of a senior person who has no managerial interest. Because very easily we can get into situations where the managerial interest clashes with the individual person's interest. Yes. You get my point? Yes. As an example, you have a brahmachari who is the Sankirtan leader, and he's coordinating the whole Sankirtan in the temple. But then he comes to a point where he actually would really do well with a time out, 3 months, Mayapur, doing Bhakti Shastri or something, So that actually would really be what he needs now. So, but then the temple president says, hang on, he's my Sankirtan leader. If he goes 3 months to India and he calculates, oh my God, I'm losing so much income, and all the other devotees, they are not inspired and coordinated here in the Sankirtan, and sorry, no, he can't go, So that is, for example, a situation where the personal interest of a devotee may clash with the interest of the project. Or another devotee, let's say, another example, let's say your head pujari is a Mataji. She's doing very wonderful service, but then one day she actually wants to marry somebody in another community, in another country, So, and then the temple president says, oh, forget it. If she leaves now and goes where her husband is, who will take care of my deity worship department? No, forget it. Maybe we can find a husband for her here in our community, so she doesn't have to leave, These things are going on, Yeah. So these are just little examples to illustrate that this easily can happen, that we view people only from managerial point of view, with the managerial glasses, and we don't have somebody who doesn't wear the managerial glasses, who cares for the individual devotees' personal interest, what they need now to really move forward in their life, So yes, and that's actually the function of the brahmanas, that the brahmanas are guiding the managers or kings or, the managers, how to arrange things and rule, so that it is for everybody's ultimate benefit of going home back to Godhead, Yeah, so very interesting thing. And another powerful quote I want to read before we open up for questions. This nice statement from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from the book Amritavani. Very powerful quotes are there in this book Amritavani. It's like almost like a Vaishnav Bible type thing, with all sutras and powerful statements from Bhaktisiddhanta. So in that book he says, one who gives personal instruction to each and everyone does more for others than the platform speakers do. So platform speakers are people who give lectures, who sit on a platform, on an asana or a stage or something, and give lectures. So one who gives personal instruction to each and everyone does more for others than the lecturer. Generally, whatever lecturers say cannot solve the problem of everyone in the audience, nor can it always benefit every individual. And now comes the most interesting sentence. A person's defects are better rectified in a private tutorial class or private coaching than in hearing lectures in a college or school. Therefore, those who instruct particular persons separately can award them something more permanent. Wow. I mean, when I came across this quote, I was really dancing in ecstasy, I tell you that, because I thought, wow, this is really black and white. Bhaktisiddhanta makes this point, how important this one-to-one session is. That just giving lectures, of course, it's also inspiring and purifying, but it doesn't necessarily help us to correct our defects. We may maintain them. We may go out of the lecture, oh, it was so nice, so inspiring. But we may maintain all our ego patterns of behaviors and. So our defects are better corrected and rectified through this one-to-one exchange, where one devotee really opens their heart and shares, and the other person can actually address very sensitive issues, which, we would not allow just anybody to touch upon, but from that person, we allow, So then actually, correction becomes a loving exchange, if it is built on love and trust, and we allow this person to touch very sensitive topics in our heart, but from that person, because we know this person has no other interest except my spiritual development. Therefore, from that person, we gladly and happily accept it, even though it may be a little painful to our false ego and so on, but nevertheless, we accept, because, Vaisheshika Prabhu has this motto, we live to be corrected, But my God, how often, do we oppose to correction when somebody corrects us? Ooh, our ego immediately, So no, we should want to be corrected, And unless we have such a person who actually guides us on this one-to-one level, it is difficult to make advancement. We may just walk around with our natas and our, envious ego patterns of behaviors or whatever it may be. We may walk around with them for many lifetimes, unless we actually have somebody in our life who really guides us and points this out to us, And also, as I mentioned, so many times it happens that there's some misunderstanding between devotees, and then we get offended. And then being offended is also connected with a false ego. And then the ego blocks our ears, blocks our vision. We cannot see, we cannot understand what is the problem actually. And then very easily we take shelter of our false ego, not of a devotee, If we don't have some trusting, confidential relationship there in our life, then we just leave and we just think, oh, nobody understands me anyway, and. So, I do also have, just in case you don't know, I do have a book about the false ego too, the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. I highly recommend it. It has helped me a lot to detect how my ego gets into my way and so on, Yeah, so on the false ego, very difficult to really work on our false ego if we don't have a mentor who can help us to see, when the ego gets into our way, because the ego is so subtle. Easily we can completely miss it, Even married life, we have such a high divorce rate. Any marriage problem can be overcome if we just have a mentor, a coach, where we can turn to when we have some tensions in our married life, Any marriage problem can be overcome if we don't even allow it to build all up, and, like in a pressure cooker pot, then the whole thing explodes. No, as soon as there's some funny noises coming there, something is not right, we should go to our mentor, we should reveal our mind, and get some good guidance. Then, ideally it should be a grihasta couple, and the wife takes shelter of her, the husband takes shelter of him. Then they have sessions together, and the husband can, the male mentor can tell him, where he has to adjust things a bit and maybe be a bit more caring with his wife, give more emotional support, and she can tell her where she has to work on. So, that both can stay together and work on themselves and move forward. But if we don't have that, then very easily, things just get out of hand, and then people separate, yes, unfortunately. See, and in spiritual culture, this is most natural, that there are the seniors there, the elders in extended families or in a community, where this guidance is given, most natural, So let me see now what questions you have, but please stick to what we discussed. Don't just ask things now, how do we find a mentor or something? We haven't talked about that yet. It's all coming, or something is coming, we have still an afternoon session. So please just keep your questions to the points we discussed. At this point, we just want to deeply convince ourselves that we do need such relationships in our life. We do need a mentor. And eventually we should also become a mentor to others if we don't want to forever lead a superficial life. That's what the Guru Purana said. If we don't come to this point where we actually selflessly and compassionately reach out to others and try to uplift them, our life is superficial. So that's, at this point, this is the topic of the morning session, just to convince ourselves that we need these sheltering relationships in our life. So do we have any questions just about that? So there's some hand up there, Mandla, whoever that is.
Hare Krishna Mata, we do have a couple of questions, but before then, I'd like to welcome His Grace Saranam Haridas Prabhu, who is the head of Devotee Care in South Africa. So we'd like to welcome you, Prabhu. Thank you for joining us here today.
Wow, where is he? Let me see him.
He's actually got a question for you, so maybe you can ask it directly, but we do have other questions.
Okay.
So maybe he can unmute himself and ask his question directly, and then we'll just continue with the rest of the questions.
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much for this beautiful, amazing, really inspiring, and I should say, it's motivating and purifying. Thank you for this class. I only wish that there could have been more, other managers and leaders listening to what you're saying. So we're so in tune to what you're saying, and I fully agree with exactly what you're saying. So the question I had is the disconnect that we have in our society between devotees and between managers alike. How do we break that disconnect, and how do we improve those relationships with all devotees, particularly with the leaders? How do we do that?
Well, it is a bit of a top, you're jumping a bit ahead here, but I mean, as I said, we have only 4 hours and my time is very limited. And actually, you may know or maybe not know, last year in May, I was actually scheduled to come to South Africa and give these seminars. And I had booked all my flights. So I have a whole pile of flight vouchers, even domestic flights there with Mango Airlines and whatever they're all called, so I hope one day I will be able to come actually and give the seminar there. This will be so much more effective, because all these airlines, they didn't give me any refund. They only gave me a voucher. And as soon as the Corona thing eases up a little bit, I do want to come and give these seminars, That will be more effective. But in a nutshell, it all starts by bringing the attention to this topic, And I remember distinctly when Ranjaswami was introducing this whole idea of devotee care being based on sheltering relationships, when he was introducing this in Ukraine, it was for many managers a bit of a challenge. They felt a little threatened, because, and I mean, I was temple president's wife for 10 years. I know what it means to manage. It's a challenge. It's hard to get all the ends meet, to pay the bills, to get all the services covered. It's a real challenge. And a manager needs control over people. This is also there. Otherwise, how can he get people to follow him and do what he would like them to do, Very true. So in the beginning, some managers felt a little threatened hearing that there is now another group of people who also have control over devotees, That is a little fearsome. And the main thing is that, the mentors, they should not work against the managers, but they have to work together. They have to work and pull in the same direction. And this is unfortunately happening also a lot, that in the name of devotee care, in the name of mentorship, the mentors work against the managers. And that, of course, creates a disaster. That only brings tension and conflict. So the essence is that the leaders, the managers and the mentors, they have to have very close, trusting, affectionate relationships, that they are on the same wavelength, that they want to cooperate in order to do something for the community. There has to be cooperation amongst the managers and the mentors, And I mean, now we are really jumping ahead, but since you are in charge of the devotee care, I have to honor your question, and I do want to answer it now, even though it's really far ahead. But that's why when we think about starting a structure which supports devotee care and mentorship, we start by identifying the possible personalities who could be shelter givers and mentors. And that includes also the managers. And they first have to develop their relationships by having a weekly Sangha, just based on Shravanam Kirtanam. They have to build their relationships. They should get together in a house program regularly, ideally every week. And it's a closed circle of people, all those people who could possibly serve as mentors. And that includes the managers also. They can also work as mentors. So the managers and those who are not managing but wanting to be part of this shelter giving and mentorship, they have to meet regularly. This may go for 6 months, 12 months. There is no talk even about them serving as mentors. First, the relationships have to be built. If this is not there, then very easily you can get a system of independent leaders and political parties. But that we don't want. There has to be unity. People have to work together and not against each other. Yeah, so the whole thing is highly purifying. It really churns the anatas on all levels, because first the seniors have to learn to cooperate. They can't be antagonistic towards each other and have some ego battles there. That all has to first be, subdued, and there has to be love and trust amongst the leaders and the managers and mentors. So, and then when that is created, then certain personalities can be invited to serve as mentors, but there always has to be good cooperation, you know. And cooperation is the toughest in Kali Yuga, you know, to learn to cooperate. Yeah, I think I don't really want to say much more on this now because, yeah, it is really running ahead. But yeah, I highly recommend you to get this book, you know, Sheltering Relationships. You can get the soft copy through Amazon. But if you want the hard copy, we can arrange it. I can send it. It's not an issue, you know. So
Thank
now
you so
what?
much.
Thank you for attending. I'm happy that you're coming here and
My pleasure.
taking
Looking
part.
forward to this.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
We have another question from Sinazo. She asked this question via YouTube, and she asks, if Shastra isn't enough to move us from horrible relationships, how do we start these relationships from taking shelter within the culture of impersonalism that pervades?
What was your first part of the session? A question
If these horrible relationships are not, if Shastra isn't enough to move us from these
Shastra
horrible
is not
relationships.
enough. Well, we have Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, you know, so of course Shastra is not enough. We have to learn to associate with devotees. You know, Shastra alone is never enough. We need the association of devotees, and we have to serve in the association of devotees, you know, and we have to accept guidance, you know. Shastra alone is not enough. We need Guru and Sadhu, you know, the devotees, you know. So now how do we create such, what was the second part of the sentence? And
the second part of the sentence was, how do we then move from these, how do we start these relationships of taking shelter in the culture of impersonalism that pervades?
yeah, well, first step is always hearing about it, you know. So we have to hear about the importance of these relationships. And then step number 2 is we have to desire them, you know. Actually, this could be a good little homework there over lunchtime, you know, that we reflect. Where am I standing here in regards to accepting shelter and giving shelter? Do I actually have such a person in my life where I know this person has no other interest except, you know, my spiritual journey, my spiritual development? You know, do I have such a person in my life? Have I ever thought about it, that I need such a person in my life? You know, for many devotees, I mean, I have given these seminars, you know, for the last 20 years in so many places. So often I come across this, that people say, oh, having a mentor, I haven't even thought about that, you know. Or that people say, forget it, I don't want to have anybody sticking their nose into my life and tell me what to do. You know, you come across such statements that people don't even understand the value, the sweetness of having such a relationship. It is all based on trust, you know. A mentor should be a person. He should be a senior, confidential friend and a well-wisher, you know, who gives inspiration, who gives guidance, who is a role model, who's got qualities which we don't have yet and we are striving for, you know. And that is a mentor that we really think, oh yes, I want to become like this person, you know. And there is trust and confidentiality there. We know we can open our heart, you know, without having to be afraid that, you know, what we share is blabbered around the whole community and somebody, you know, rubs it back into us later and uses it against us or something. But there has to be confidentiality. And even that is a big topic. These days, so difficult for people to keep something confidential. You know, it's all blabbered out on Facebook and WhatsApp all around the world. And, you know, yes, Punjabi, you know, yes. So there has to be confidentiality there. so that we really know I can open my heart to this person and he will not tell anybody else. And he is qualified to give me some good guidance, how I deal with this and this and this situation, That is a mentor. And sheltering, accepting shelter means we actually want to be corrected by this person. We want to be corrected. Then we are taking shelter. But if we avoid correction and we feel it uncomfortable, or we defend, oh, who are you to tell me, and blah, well, then we have not taken shelter, actually. To take shelter means that we want to be corrected by this person. That's what it means to take shelter, So we can ask ourselves over the lunch break, so do I have such a person in my life from whom I actually want to be corrected, where I have that trust that this person can give me some tools, some guidance, And at the same time, we can ask ourselves, how much do I care for others around me? Am I willing to sacrifice my time and energy to actually reach out to others and somehow help them to make progress? Or am I just so selfish and only my thing here and my goals and my agendas? How much do I reach out to others? So there we can directly, try and see within our own life how much this giving shelter to others and this accepting shelters from others, how much is this in my life? Have I ever thought about it at all? And do I understand how important these exchanges are? So that's where we have to start. And then it's all a question of desire, That's why the most important part in striving for, more personal and trusting relationships, that first of all, we have to hear how important this is, that without such relationships, we actually cannot really make advancement. Yeah, that's what it boils down to, actually. And I can share from my own personal life, somehow by Krishna's mercy, I actually always had such relationships in my life, Yes, and I think that's why I survived the 36 years of Krishna consciousness, And so many who joined at my time, they haven't survived, Yes. So it's a matter of our desire. We have to desire. And for some reason, I never, as a younger devotee, I never understood this philosophically or something, but intuitively, I was always looking for such relationships. I needed them. And I was always just intuitively searching for them. And if we desire them, then also Krishna arranges. Krishna is there in the heart, Paramatma. So if we actually desire to find such a person, then Krishna will arrange. And then we will be able to see who is a good person like that, and it requires, endeavor to develop a trusting relationship. It doesn't come from nothing. We have to endeavor, we make some effort. So what other question is there?
So I've noted 3 hands, and they'll go in this order after I read this question that I received prior to the raised hands. So it'll be Mantla Prabhu, Roshna Mataji, and Govardhana Prabhu. So then we've got an anonymous question that says, Hare Krishna, Mother Devaki. When we trust in faith, Hare Krishna Mataji, what should a devotee do in a situation where they are part of a small community, where the senior devotee does not seem to feel the same importance that they themselves actively seek out, sheltering relationships?
Well, I think I'd rather move this question to the afternoon, because in the afternoon, I was thinking of discussing first all the different qualities we have to be able to serve as a mentor. And there's 2 reasons why this topic is highly important. First of all, we have to know who is qualified to serve as a mentor. We have to know what to look for. If we don't know the qualities a mentor should have, then very easily we take shelter of an unqualified person, and then we cannot be surprised that we are disappointed. So if we look for gold, we have to know what gold looks like and what qualities gold has. Otherwise, we get the wrong thing, And then also this is important for us to understand what qualities we have to cultivate so that we eventually can also come up and serve as a mentor, Because as we said, this should also be there. We should have a mentor, but eventually we should become a mentor as well. So we have to know what qualifications and qualities to cultivate so that we can become more and more ready to actually reach out to others and be a good shelter giver. So, and I would say we better move this question to the afternoon. And this morning session, we just stick to the topic of convincing ourselves of the importance of having a mentor, Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, there are more questions, but I think we'll start with the hands that are raised because they came before the questions. So
Okay.
let's be fair to them. So the first hand that I saw that was raised was Mandla Prabhu. So Mandla, if you can mute yourself and ask your question, and then we'll follow with Roshna, and then we'll follow with Govardhana.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare
More glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I'm just absorbing everything you're saying like a sponge. And my question is, what should we do in situations where we are called upon in certain instances to be mentors but feel unqualified? I think you just answered it right now when you mentioned how we need to cultivate those qualities.
Yeah, I think also that question we better leave to the afternoon. Let us first discuss the qualities and qualifications we have to have in order to serve as a mentor, And then after we discuss that, then we can have a look at a question, so all right, if we don't feel qualified, well, maybe we are not qualified. Let's first discuss the qualifications. Or even if we have the qualifications and we don't feel qualified, well, then that's a separate question. But let's leave it for the afternoon. We are not there yet. Is that all right? So you have to be back this afternoon.
No, definitely. Thank you so much.
What else?
Could we have Roshana, please unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Hare Krishna.
Can we see you too? Hare Krishna.
Haribol Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to the first generation, second generation, and I don't know, many more generations to come in the 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali Yuga. Thank you for so wisely giving us the tools and to cope and the knowledge to cope with this very important topic of mentorship and relationships. It's a very difficult thing. Many years ago, we had the first Rath Yatra in Phoenix. That was done very nicely, lovely preparation by the managers, by the authorities here in Phoenix, South Africa. But we didn't have a good turnout. So one of the guest speakers were His Holiness Indadumna Swami, who was the festival Acharya in ISKCON. And the other was His Holiness Kadamba Karna Swami. So we got to, somehow we connected and clicked and we got together and we said, I said, Maharaj, there's no preaching. That's why we didn't get a good turnout. And he looked at me, he put his arm on my shoulder like Krishna and Balram would do. And he smiled and told me, no, it's not preaching, it's relationships. We have a relationship, people come. If we don't have a relationship, then we will have an empty hall.
Yeah.
And so I like your point about taking shelter of qualified mentors. And there are many qualified mentors, but don't have the Vaishnav skills, the more soft skills of working with the heart. Krishna consciousness is a relationship with the heart. It's not a relationship of bureaucracy and corporate relationship that we have in the material world.
Mm.
And that's what we are trying to force in ISKCON. And that's why Smaran Prabhu, who is heading Devotee in South Africa, has asked a very crucial point. That global problem is that there's a big gap between mentors, or let's put it this way, the two-tier of government in ISKCON. One is the GBC and the other is the temple president. And I know you said you had 10 years relationship in ISKCON in temple presidentship. When the husband is a temple president, the wife is also the temple president.
Yeah,
whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
The better half guides the temple president, who is the male body, devotee. And the point we're coming to is actually, these two levels of authority have gone onto uncharted waters. They have not bridged the gap with the congregation or the people. And Prabhupada had that skill of turning anyone who came to him, whether challenging mood or whether inquiry mood, submissively, a good service. He had the skills of turning them very favorably and leaving them favorably when they left his association.
Mm.
And many years later, you found that they became devotees. A good example is the one of the air hostess who served Prabhupada some fruit and milk from the business class and nuts. And later the air hostess grabbed some remnants.
What is
and
your
many years
question?
later, when the devotee went to preach them.
What is your question? So we don't waste time.
Okay.
You're giving your own lecture now.
No, it's fine. I'm just saying that these points bring us to the point of building the relation. I just want to share one point that Prabhupada said regarding relationship. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one continually performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time. But once one establishes a relationship with the Supreme Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material world. So my point is, relationships should be developed on these things. So I'd like to thank you for that contribution. And we hope, my question is, we hope that we can have the same relationship with the devotee community that we are struggling to get together.
Okay.
And we thank you, Mataji, for addressing this so wonderfully with your personal experience.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, Prabhu. So let's move on to a question.
So we've got another hand up. I think it's the final hand up from Govardhana Prabhu.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Master and devotees, please accept my humble obeisance
Hare
of
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for this very wonderful presentation. My question was around seniors or identifying them, but it sounds like that's something you'll address this afternoon. So I don't think I need to ask.
Yeah, let's keep that question for the afternoon. If we have a little bit more time, I would just like to present the very last good reason why we need such sheltering relationships in our life. And now we are coming from a slightly different angle, namely from the importance of the service attitude. That actually Krishna really looks at our mood of service, how we are sacrificing ourselves in service. And proportionally to our service attitude, he reveals himself, right? I mean, Usually I take 1 hour to discuss all that. So now I will just condense it into 10 minutes or 5 minutes. There's examples like Satatam Kirtayantuman, Yatanta Sadrita Rata, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. So this is actually how we are meant to serve. We are meant to serve with heart and soul, giving our very everything in service. And if we serve with such a mood, then Krishna very easily reveals himself. So now the point is that actually we can only give ourselves in service with heart and soul if we are sheltered. That's a very crucial point. Somebody needs to be unmuted here. I can hear some noises. Yes, thank you. Yes, so this is a very important point, because when we serve with heart and soul, we actually put ourselves in a vulnerable condition. Somebody can disappoint us. Somebody can take advantage of us, because whenever we give our heart in anything, we can easily be hurt, So we cannot really serve with heart and soul 95% of energy and effort if we are not sheltered. Then if we are not sheltered, then we will hold back. We will think, okay, where am I here in this whole game? Okay, I'm serving, giving myself, because also it is very common that those persons who really give themselves in service, they're loaded with more service, because he's going to get it done, and then very easily we can be overburdened with service, and then if we are not sheltered, if we don't have such a trusting, sheltering relationships with somebody who has no managerial interest, then very easily we will hold back. We will not invest heart and soul in our service. We will serve maybe 5%, 10% we give ourselves, but not 95%. It's interesting to observe that very often we feel we don't have enough devotees. But actually the point is we have so many devotees, but they are not giving their heart and soul. They're only giving 5 or 10%. That's the issue. That's the problem. It's not the problem that we are lacking devotees. No, we have so many devotees, but they don't want to give their heart and soul. Why? Because they're not sheltered. Yes. So, and now what happens is, that if we are not sheltered, then we cannot give our heart and soul in service. So therefore, as a result, Krishna will not reveal himself so easily, because Krishna responds to the service mood. If he sees, a devotee is really sacrificing himself, giving up his comfort, his self-interest, and really giving himself in service, then Krishna reveals. Then Krishna gives a taste. Then Krishna gives this deep satisfaction at heart. But if this is not there, because the person is not sheltered, so then he will only serve with 5 or 10%. And as a result, nothing is really happening in his devotional life. He doesn't get a taste. He doesn't get any realizations. And then we just lead a boring humdrum life of plodding along there, doing something little, and there's nothing really happening in our life. And this is another reason why people often leave, because they don't get a taste. And why? Because they're not giving their heart and soul. And why aren't they giving their heart and soul? Because they're not sheltered. And I think this is going on in many devotees' lives, that we are caught on some lower, in some vicious circle of a lower level of devotional life, where we just, serve with minimal effort. All right, I'm doing something, but don't push me, not too much, just, one little thing a week or whatever it may be, just something little, what I want to do, and not more than that. With that service mood, Krishna will not be attracted. It's just the way it is. Krishna will not feel obliged. His heart will not be conquered. But if Krishna sees a devotee really, puts himself out, and accepts all kinds of inconveniences, that conquers Krishna's heart, Yes, and then he reciprocates with that devotee, and then we get a taste and we get realizations. So yes, this is just really, usually I spend so much time in explaining this, but this is in a nutshell, one more extra reason why we need these sheltering relationships, because only if we are sheltered, then we feel safe to invest our heart and soul, because then if we get to a situation where we maybe don't have the balance anymore, for example, between service and sadhana, where we are overloaded with service and, oh my God, and I haven't been chanting nicely, and I haven't been to India for years, and I'm getting a little, worn out here and drained. So, if we know we have a sheltering relationship, then we can go there to our mentor and say, oh, Prabhu, I think I need a break. I have too many things. My sadhana is not strong. I'm lacking taste here. I'm not resting enough. So, and then the mentor should actually talk to the manager and say, oh, temple president Prabhu, I think this devotee is a little worn out. He needs a break, So then they, our mentor can protect us, and he can help, us to balance our spiritual practice. And he can put a word in with the temple president, Yes, because, I really want to make sure, and hopefully I'm not being misunderstood here. I'm not attacking the managers. No. Definitely not. Managing is a tough thing. It's a challenge. It's really a challenge. And we can't blame the managers for wearing the managerial glasses, because that's their job. They're just doing their job, Yeah, so we can't blame them, Of course, we can say a very Brahminical manager, he will always put the needs of the devotees first, because he understands if the devotees in my project are happy and taken care of, and they're inspired and nourished, then the project will flourish, right? Because what is the project? It's consisting of so many individual personalities. So if they are happy and cared for, then the project will flourish. That's a Brahminical vision. But unfortunately, it's hard enough to find devotees who want to manage it all, and usually Brahminical people, they don't like to manage. They rather preach and do other things, So as a rule, those persons who agree to do the management, they're more Kshatriya type people, And and they often don't have this Brahminical vision, and we can't blame them. We can't criticize them. And in this regard, I want to share, actually, for many years, I could not understand these things. All these things took me years to understand. And I remember years ago, maybe 20 years ago, or even more, 25 years ago, sometimes people came to me and they said, oh, I feel used. I feel exploited. And I could never relate to it. I was always saying, what are you talking? This is nonsense. Krishna accepts your service. What's the problem? How can you be used or something, So, but then later I realized it's a very subtle thing, this feeling of being used can come about if devotees feel that you know, the seniors only have interest in what service they do, and they don't have the interest in me as a person, as a struggling sadhaka. That interest is not there, only what service we do. You know, that leads to this feeling of being used, that we feel actually nobody has interest in me, how I'm doing, how I'm chanting, how I can grow and develop myself in Krishna consciousness. Everybody's only interested, you know, what services I do on the roster there, you know. So, but now the crunch is, we can, if we feel used, we cannot blame the managers. Actually, we have to blame ourselves for not understanding the importance of a sheltering relationship. That's the crunch, right? We have to blame ourselves, because if we have a sheltering relationship in our life, then we will not feel used, even if our temple president has the managerial glasses, because he's a manager, he has to have it, you know. But if we make sure that we have a sheltering relationship in our life, then we will not feel used, because we have somebody to go to. We feel protected. We know there is a person who has no other interest in my life than my spiritual development. So of course now we can say, but shouldn't the guru be that person who has no interest except my spiritual development? Of course he should, and he is. But the practical life shows that for most of us, guru is rather remote. We can't expect that guru, you know, gets involved in every little thing there in our daily life. It's not possible, you know. It's like in a big family. Let's say a family has 15 children. It's also very natural that the older children help to take care of the young children. Very natural, because the parents just can't extend themselves equally to 15 children. So that's, you know, the culture in an extended family. And in a bigger family, that very naturally the older children, they help to care for the young children, you know. So what to speak of a family with hundreds and thousands of children, you know. So there has to be, you know, the older children who help the guru to take care of the young children, you know. And that's what it means to become mature in Krishna consciousness, that we are willing to make that sacrifice, you know. There is also a nice quote from Bhaktisiddhanta, which we haven't read yet. Bhaktisiddhanta says, I wish that every selfless, tender-hearted person of the Gaudiya Math will be prepared to shed 200 gallons of blood for the nourishment of the spiritual corpus of every individual of this world. 200 gallons of blood it takes, you know, just to bring one person, you know, to the level of pure devotion, Devotee, you know, pure devotional service. So we can't expect that the Diksha Guru is shedding 200 gallons of blood for each and every one of his disciples. My God, he will be anemic very quickly, you know. So we have to help. We have to at least be willing to shed a few drops, you know, of helping him to take care. And not, it doesn't mean that, oh, we only care for the disciples of our guru or something. No, of Prabhupada's family, you know. So, but going back to this other point, let us clearly understand, if we have no sheltering relationships in our life, then it will be very difficult to serve with heart and soul and give our everything. We will be holding back. And if we hold back and not serve with full dedication and input, then Krishna will not be conquered. He will not reveal himself. He will not give us a taste, because that deep satisfaction and joy in Krishna consciousness is Krishna's way of reciprocating with our efforts to serve. That's where the deep satisfaction comes from. So, but Krishna only reveals that when we manage to conquer his heart through our service, you know. So, and then we go in a vicious circle there. We don't get taste, and we don't get deep realizations, and therefore we also don't feel more inspired to really serve and dedicate ourselves and sacrifice ourselves. So, and then we have this humdrum life there, And yes, one more time, if we somehow feel, some slight how to say, some slight tendency of feeling used or something, don't blame the managers. He is doing his job. He's wearing the managerial glasses. Of course he is. So it's our fault, basically, or not fault. Let's not blame people, but it is our duty to be eager for such a sheltering relationship. We have to recognize the need for us. To have these sheltering relationships. We cannot expect the managers, that they're managing and also caring for each and every person in the whole community. My God, not possible, not possible. And the very beginning of ISKCON, we did have that understanding that the temple president should also care for all the devotees. And while ISKCON was a very small movement, and the communities just, with 10, 15 Babachais there doing their things and preaching. So then, of course, the temple president could care nicely about them also. He could play both functions. But as the temples and the communities grow, there's so many more devotees. And we cannot expect that the managers are also fulfilling this function of a mentor and a coach and all that. We cannot expect that. So yes, please. I mean, these are also a little touchy topics. So please don't misunderstand me here and say, oh, Devotee Mataji, she doesn't like temple presidents or something. No. As I'm saying, I was TP's wife myself for 10 years. And yes, I was very involved in managing and, supervising the DD department. And we had 30 girls in the Brahmacharini ashram. And my God, I was full on, yes. So I know all about it, what a challenge it is to manage, But yeah, we had that experience in Ukraine also, as I shared in the beginning. The managers were a little worried, or there's somebody else now who's also having influence and control over the devotees. But then they understood that their job, their service of managing becomes so much easier if the devotees have a mentor, Then he doesn't have to deal with all kinds of headaches there. And he can just say, all right, that you discuss with your mentor, please. And actually, when people have a mentor, then they should be more happy in devotional life. And then they're also more willing to serve. That's what we just said. If we are actually sheltered, then we will not serve with 5 or 10%, but with 90% or 95% of energy and heart and soul. So then actually the manager's life becomes so much easier if the devotees are sheltered, But it means, as I mentioned, when, what was his name, Smarahari or something, Prabhu asked, yes, Smarahari, here I see his name thing. So when he asked, the price we have to pay is to create trusting relationships between the managers and the senior devotees who want to care and mentor people. That's the price to pay. That's where we have to start. We have to create that, that affection and trust and harmonious relationships on the top level between managers and mentors. And then that harmony will filter down through the whole community. But as long as there is, disharmony, disunity, people just going against each other rather than with each other, as long as there's politics going on, well, then we cannot really make much progress in this whole topic of caring, for devotees. We first have to build the bridge on the top level there. So it's a challenge, but if we want to go back to God, my God, we have to work on these things anyway, and highly purifying journey there, like that. Okay, so let me see. So this was simply the last really good reason why we need sheltering relationships, so that we can actually really invest our heart and soul when we serve, and that will attract Krishna, and then we will get realizations, and we experience some taste and so many doors open for us to move forward. And this is all arranged by the Lord according to our service attitude. So developing a good service attitude where we are willing to sacrifice ourselves, this is one of the most important principles of making progress in devotional life, And if that's not there, then we just lead a boring humdrum life. And then after a while, we just think, oh, well, I tried this Krishna consciousness and it's not for me. And I didn't get anything out of it, Yes. So it goes back to this point of not being sheltered, not having such a sheltering relationship in our life. So let me see, before we finish now, is there any more question, but really only a question? And see, this is why I usually prefer that people submit their questions in writing, so that they are concise and precise, and that they, but very often if we don't do this, then the question is not so precise, and it's more comments. And I mean, comments are also nice, and I value this also to get this feedback, but I usually keep this kind of comments to the end, like now, for example. If there's no further questions, then if anybody wants to share some realization or something, I'm happy to stay on a little longer for some personal exchange and sharing or something, I usually don't just go so strictly according to the time. Okay, now it's 12 o'clock here, finish. No, if people want to still, share something, I'm happy for that. But let's first see if there is some questions. Do we still have something?
Yes, we do have a few questions from the previous session. I would like to just relieve those who need to leave, because I do see the time is 5 minutes past 12. So those who need to leave are welcome to do so, but please join us later on at 4 p.m. We have another 2-hour session, and it's going to be as jam-packed as this one. So for those who need to leave, please, you can do so. There will be no hard feelings. We are very, very happy to have you here with us. So we have a question from earlier on from Tabi Singh Mataji. If I can just find the question, and she says, Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to you. Thank you so much for such an insightful lecture. My question is around enjoying with devotees as a form of building relationships and taking shelter. For example, devotees find common interests amongst themselves and cultivate a relationship around that. I love kirtan, or love for knowledge, love for lectures, etc. How can we ensure that this form of enjoyment is not materialistic and based on sense enjoyment?
Well, I mean, see, there's all kinds of different types of relationships in Krishna consciousness. So there's relationships with juniors, there's relationships with equals, there's relationships with seniors. So, and especially amongst the equals, I mean, just having a same taste and joy in different activities in Krishna consciousness doesn't mean it is material, because it is based on service. But ultimately, it is a question of consciousness, So what is really the foundation of our relationship? Is it just we want to have a good time with people and have fun in the kirtan or fun in whatever we do? Or do we actually do we want to give pleasure to Krishna and Guru and Prabhupada and the other devotees and actually serve, have a service mood? So this is a very subtle difference, which cannot even be so easily determined from outside or something. It just, means it's a question of consciousness. And also when we are a younger devotee, of course, we have more the enjoying spirit, of course, as a younger devotee. So, but at least we are dovetailing. We are using that enjoying spirit in Krishna consciousness. And then if at the same time we practice sincerely, meaning mainly sadhana, that we really get up early, we chant nicely, attentively, we hear the Bhagavatam and. So then gradually our heart will become purified of these tendencies for enjoying, So, but even if we have, an attraction to just, associate with those devotees who have the same natures and likings and all that, still we should have at least one person in our life with a senior devotee, who we accept as a guide, as a mentor, as a coach, as a counselor, that should be there. And then that person can also, correct us when there's something to correct, or when the person sees actually we allowing too much just the enjoying spirit into our life. But I mean, ultimately, this will also be very, rather quickly exposed, basically. If our main motive is just to have a good time and have fun, so then we will not be so ready to serve in all circumstances. And when we ask to do something which we don't like doing, then, oh, sorry, no, we don't do it, or we don't turn up, we are not reliable, and all that. So it will become apparent how much we actually want to serve, or how much we see Krishna consciousness just as a one big festival where we have a good time and enjoy, So, and then if we have a mentor, then, the mentor can help us to actually see these things, and he can, or she can point out where we have to work on, and so on. And, he or she can guide us to gradually actually progress, like that. What other question?
We've got another question from Varona Radhikarani, and she says, Hare Krishna, Mother Devaki. When our trust and faith is broken by our senior, who we build a relationship with and see them as a spiritual guide, but they exploit you in the worst possible way, then how can we gain... I'm sorry. Then how can you, let me start again. But they exploit you in the worst possible way. Then how can we gain the trust and faith in the devotees again, and seek guidance from our seniors?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's more a question for the afternoon, because, we first have to see who is qualified to accept as a mentor. Maybe we accepted a person who actually doesn't fit into the category of qualifications, But even if that person fits into the category of qualifications, and still we are somehow disappointed, we are let down, there is a few good points what we should consider. That first of all, let's be clear, we cannot expect that a mentor has no material desires and he's 100% pure devotee. So of course, he also has some issues to work on, and so we have to also be a little understanding, a little forgiving, a little merciful. We can't be too idealistic. I mean, in my book about sheltering relationships, there is a chapter entitled Don't Expect Utopia. So don't expect utopia. We can't be, too idealistic, So, and then another thing is, the Vaishnav humility always makes us think and ask, why is Krishna putting me in this situation? That I deserve so much more than this, But fortunately, Krishna only gives me one drop. He is so merciful. He actually only gives me one drop of what I really deserve. You know, so that should always be the basic vision of a devotee when we experience something unpleasant and negative in our life. We should not blame simply other people. Oh, it's his fault, it's her fault, and you know, this is, oh my God, you know. So Vaishnava humility means we look at our own life and we think, what did I do wrong that I'm ending up in this situation? Because usually, you know, there's always two sides, you know, and usually we may also contribute to the situation that we end up in some misery and some negative situation, you know. But that we usually don't like to see. We only like to see how other people did so many mistakes, but we don't like to see how we actually are also implicated and we also contributed. And there is always for everybody some lesson to learn, even from that person who feels let down and so on, you know, or exploited or whatever. There's always a lesson for us to also learn, you know, and even if it means to become more humble, more tolerant. But as a rule, this is my experience, that, you know, those who feel terribly exploited, it's not that they are all innocent. They also somehow contributed to the whole thing, you know? Yes. So, and that has to be looked at, you know? And yeah, and if we are a little introspective, you know, then we can detect that, and we can also understand the point that even mentors also do make mistakes, you know, and they also have some anarthas. So that's why this whole giving and accepting shelter, it is actually a whole churning process of anarthas in both sides, not only in the mentee who takes shelter, but also in the mentor who gives shelter, you know. So even in his position, you know, there may be also some subtle motives, some tendency to manipulate. It's not fully selfless, you know, so that will be exposed. It will come out. It will become obvious, you know. And a mentor, we will discuss in the afternoon session, a mentor also has to have a mentor. That's one of the basic, you know, conditions to serve as a mentor, that he has to be sheltered. He has to have a mentor, or she, you know. So, and then the mentor of the mentor, you know, he can also get involved, you know. Yes, yes. He will give guidance to his mentee how to serve as a mentor, you know. So it will become more clear in the afternoon session. Is there anything else? You have to hang on, we can't hear you. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol, sorry about that. We have one last question from Wafana Prabhu. And he says, please can long-standing devotees understand one is not looking to take their position or to compete with them in any way. I personally am looking at advancing my small practice and getting better. I'm chanting 16 rounds a day because I feel I'm not doing progress and maybe committing offenses. So, to the help of a close relationship where there is no fear of judgment and there is just unconditional love is so crucial. So, dear devotees, I personally need your advanced experience. Thank you that a few, so few and far between that I can speak and are open and willing to share. They thank me for engaging them. I find that to be very profound. I have not met it in often, but experience gratitude from being engaged. So I think it's more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, I mean, I could not really understand a question.
Mm.
But anyway, you know, or like who was sending this?
It's Bafana Prabhu. Maybe he can unmute himself and say the comment or the question, and that will be just before we end this session.
Is he still with us? I don't see his name.
It was a comment.
Was a comment.
Yeah, it was a comment. Yes. Yeah, so I mean, it just shows, you know, it seems like you all agree with us, how important these trusting, sheltering, confidential relationships are. So that's already a good start, you know, to realize the importance of it. But then, you know, actually this seminar is actually really asking for application. It is meant to really lead to also some steps of application, you know, just to hear it all and discuss it and say, yes, it's all very nice and important and yeah, wow, interesting, but then not do anything about it and to leave everything as it is not so effective, you know. It is asking for application. But then that is the next difficult step, to actually you know, work towards that, you know. So yeah, well, in the afternoon, I will try my very best to, you know, I would like in the afternoon session to just discuss briefly the qualifications we have to have in order to serve as a mentor, you know. And then how we go about it, what's the first step to actually get a structure in place, you know. I have to admit I spaced out a little bit because I do actually have some written materials on the seminar, and I should have actually sent them to Sabyasachi Peru so he can share them with all the participants. So, I mean, maybe in the lunchtime, I could actually just send you the materials. It's actually 5 sessions, you know. So, and I didn't have the time to somehow make it into 2 sessions or something. But this afternoon, we will discuss the lesson number 4. So it may be helpful for the participants to actually have the list of qualifications in front of them when we go through them this afternoon, you know. So after we finish the session, I will immediately send you the materials, and you, yes, you can upload them on Google Drive. Exactly. This is how I have done it with other Zoom seminars. You know, I had seminars in the past, which I've given in 4 or 5 sessions. And then my technical supporter there, he has made them available each session and so on, you know. So I have to admit, I was just not thinking of it actually, you know. But I will send it to you now when we finish here, and you have a little bit of time maybe to just upload them. And then at the beginning of next session, you know, and even for the YouTube people who read it, hear it later, you know, you can give the link and then people can get the materials. But the materials will be 5 sessions. It will be the 15-hour seminar, you know. And you will simply find some things there which we discussed, but many things we also didn't discuss, you know, in 4 hours, you know. So I will do that, you know.
I see that we have a lot of comments and questions, but I think we'll just move those over to the session later on, because there are realizations and a lot of people thanking you so much for this session and saying that they have so many realizations. So I've noted Kamania Mataji would like to share her realizations, so maybe she can do that in the later session. We'll prioritize.
Let her quickly to say something now, because the afternoon session will also be full.
Okay.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Nice to see you again.
I'm so grateful. I had actually planned to be somewhere else, but I'm rearranging so I can finish today with you, because this is just powerful. I wanted to thank you for a point you made. You said a Vaishnava is very happy when someone approaches them and will make time for a junior devotee who asks them for guidance. And I went through many years in my devotional life always hesitant to reach out and ask a senior for guidance. I think maybe having grown up in England, there's always this mood of you don't want to trouble anybody or you don't want to bother anyone. And so I can see now that I've lost about 13 years of sheltering relationship for fear of, who am I to ask for them to take their time? I'm nobody, and they're so busy and they're doing so much service.
Yes.
So
Yes. Well, this is just this conditioning of materialistic life. A materialistic person will experience it as a botheration and disturbance because he's just busy, he's got his schedule, he's just running, and leave me alone with your problems and questions. I have no time. That's the material mindset, but the spiritual mindset is completely different. It's the biggest pleasure it's actually service to a senior devotee by inquiring from him and giving him an opportunity to share and speak. Because when you speak, actually your own consciousness gets lifted even more than anybody else's. Yes. Actually, in the total seminar or in the book, you will also find a chapter what qualities are required in order to be eager for shelter. Yes. But we don't have the time for this, unfortunately. But there's 3 qualities. I'll just quickly say it now. The basic quality is we have to be humble. Humility is required to be eager for shelter. So humility manifests in 3 different aspects. And the first one is inquisitiveness. We actually have to be inquisitive in order to take shelter. If we're not inquisitive, then we couldn't be bothered, And there usually when I give the 15-hour seminar, we talk for about 45 minutes on this topic of inquisitiveness, what it actually means, And there I'm often sharing, that in material life, people don't want to be bothered with questions, but in spiritual life, it's service to a senior devotee because that gives him inspiration to speak. And interestingly, all our shastras come about through this personal inquiry and answering. Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna inquiring, Krishna is the mentor here. He gives the answers. Or Bhagavatam, Parikat Maharaj inquiring, Sukadev Goswami answering, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many talks are there, inquiry, Ramananda Roy, and. So the Shastra, it's interestingly, they always come about through this one-to-one inquiry and answering, And really the speaker gets so much more spiritual benefit than the audience. So it's actually a service to a speaker or a preacher to actually inquire from them, And of course, the senior devotees also have to understand this need, that they make time. So we simply have to bring attention to this, by discussing these topics. And then another qualification we have to be eager for shelter is helplessness. We actually have to feel helpless, Yes. Without helplessness, there's shelter has no meaning, And again, in material life, who is striving to feel helpless? Nobody. It's seen as a weakness. But in spiritual life, as we progress, we feel more and more helplessly dependent on Guru Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Yes, when we open the Vaishnav songbook, all our bhajans express this mood of helplessness. Yes. And then the third qualification we need to have is respect. If we don't have respect, then we will not feel inspired to take shelter and inquire from seniors, Yeah, so just in a nutshell, that session.
It's quite a paradigm shift.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's really like that all these qualities which a spiritualist is striving for, a materialist sees them as weakness and unwanted. You know, it's really like that. Yeah, completely. You know, for a materialist, it sounds like, oh, taking shelter. Even though, I mean, even in the secular world, it is understood that, you know, if we want to become successful, we have to have a coach, right? Yes. Sports people, even I once spoke to one Mataji who is a nurse, and she said, yes, I have my nurse, my coaching nurse, you know, who coaches me, you know, so all the businessmen, they all know that, you know, if we want to become successful, we have to have a coach who actually has more success already than we have, and who can guide us to success. In the business world, in the secular world, this is understood, but somehow we haven't really understood it yet, you know. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you for this wonderful, insightful session. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we look forward to having another session with you later on at 4 p.m. Thank you so much, devotees, for being here with us. We look forward for you to join us at 4 p.m. for another lively session. Keep the questions and comments coming for that session as well. It was so lovely being with you all. So part 2 will take place at 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. I would like for you to have a wonderful afternoon, wishing all the mothers a very happy Mother's Day and everyone on this chat. Yes, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Devaki Mataji ki jai. Gaura Premanande.
We will see you back at 4 o'clock.